Welcome to this webinar. This webinar is hosted by the Improvement Service for our Improving Outcomes and Money Advice project. My name is Christopher Bosen. I am Communications Officer here at the Improvement Service. With us today, we have John Campbell, who is a Financial Inclusion Manager at North Lanarkshire Council. He is going to be telling us about their commissioning model for external advice services. So thank you very much. And John, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I would start then by talking about how did North Lanarkshire Council reach to look at commissioning external services differently as to what it had previously done. The catalyst for it was a review of advice services that was kicked off in April 2016. The review had two aims. The first aim was to design a fit-for-purpose information and advice provision across North Lanarkshire Council that ultimately led to develop the new commissioning model for external services. And then secondly, it was to deliver efficiency savings as what was agreed as part of the Council's budget challenge. The review sought the views of all internal benefit and advice providers, as well as all 10 external funded first sector services within North Lanarkshire, looking at three options. First option was outsourcing all of the advice services to the first sector. Second option was to have a mixed economy of both internal council services and first sector alternatives. And the third and final one being to have a wholly in-house service provided by the council. From that, we developed questionnaires for all organisations involved, which each organisation had to complete, including the internal services. We then held interviews with all of the external services, asking them a set questions, so that they all had the opportunity to be asked the same questions and obviously provide their own answers. We then more or less kept the same type of questions, and then we took them to the senior managers within North Lanarkshire Council again to make sure we get some sort of kind of consistency in the sense of the questions that people were being asked. We then held further interviews with heads of services within North Lanarkshire Health and Social Care, Enterprise and Housing Resources, Infrastructure Services, Regeneration Services, and Learning and Leisure Services, and then finally our Chief Exec Office. So we had a pretty real broad range consultation, discussion, internally and externally as to what way the council should move in delivering advice and information services. The mixed economy option was the one that was supported by the majority of all respondents to the review. It's been the best option for future delivery. The review recommended that the externally provided advice and information services could be best provided in future by adopting a new commissioning model that would provide a standardisation service to all North Lanarkshire councils residents who may choose not to use the council services. The review also went on to recommend that we rebrand and redesign the North Lanarkshire Information Advice Forum to form a new brand called the North Lanarkshire Advice Network. Primarily, just very quickly, the main difference between the forum and the new network was that under the forum, it was more just a verbal agreement to take part in the overall aims and objectives of the forum. However, when we were looking to do stuff collaboratively, organisations could opt in or out of it. Under the network, the partnership agreement changed slightly to make it more secure and to more sort of kind of joint working, in that organisations had to sign up to the network and ultimately all work towards the same common themes and aims and objectives. So organisations won't be able to opt in and out of any decision that the network feels or any route that the network feels that it has to go down. So that would be a good thing in the longer term. So from going back to then the actual commissioning of services, 10 external agencies, 5 just local independent advice and information services, and 5 citizens advice bureaus, all having different service level agreements or funding agreements, and and the council not necessarily having a much more strategic sort of kind of overview as to what it is these organisations were delivering in behalf of the council, and indeed really didn't really have any sort of kind of scope to go in and to try and change that direction or that service to make sure that it complemented the overall aims and objectives of the council and the people it was funding to. So from there, we looked at, well, how we would do the commissioning services. So we've done a lot of research and analysing of information. So we looked at our locality need and demand. We were very keen to make sure that whatever the organisations and ourselves came up with is to be the new model, that it would be what our communities needed and not what the council wanted to provide or any of the organisations wanted to provide. So we wanted to make sure it's what was needed and reflected in, so that we could come up with a model that reflected the needs of the residents of the 6 main localities within North Lanarkshire. So we used a combination of information, looking at local need and demand. We looked at the SMID figures, information for their localities. We looked at child poverty levels for the localities. We had, under the review, gathered a host and range of information from all the different internal and external advice and information providers. So we had a look at that information too. We've done some work with our community planning partners also to see where it would have fit within their objectives. And we also looked at the priorities of North Lanarkshire Council and North Lanarkshire Health and Social Care Services. Now, when we done that, primarily to look at that, one of the other main reasons was to see how we could then ultimately split a pot of money across the 6 major localities, thinking that each locality would have different needs and different demands. However, when we finally drilled down that information, it came out as being that each locality had the same needs and the same demands. So from a council perspective, that made taking a single pot of money and just dividing it by 6 quite easy for us to do. It also meant that obviously that we wouldn't have communities or elected members or organisations kind of saying, why did Cumbernauld get more money than Airdrie or vice versa. So I think that was just by sheer luck than anything else that the research and analysis of the demand and need worked out that way. The next commission options then we looked at was, do we go down a procurement route? Originally, the review had outlined possibly 2 ways of procurement. One is to have a single Pan-Lanarkshire agency, or to have 2 agencies within North Lanarkshire, one for the north of North Lanarkshire and one for the south of North Lanarkshire. Now, with that would mean you were then going from 10 providers technically down either to 1 or 2, and it would mean also then that some of the providers who have been operating within North Lanarkshire for over the last 30 to 35 years would ultimately could lose out. So we're conscious of what the impact would be within the local communities and obviously politically, in the sense of some organisation being unsuccessful. We done then from there a bit of exploring as to having a look at other local authorities who maybe had been down the procurement route, and we looked at 2 local authorities in England, Portsmouth City Council and Manchester City Council, And then we also looked at Glasgow City Council, who are also just up the road from us. The two English local authorities, we done more desktop, using the internet and going onto their website, etc., and looking at other local agents within their area too. We then, from a Glasgow perspective, made contact with them and met the Glasgow City Council, which proved to be an extremely wise decision to do, because following that and their experience of procuring advice and information services, they went down a route of procurement. So they started off with 17 providers, went through a procurement exercise and still ended up with 17 providers, and then ultimately moved back to a grant funding system, remaining with 17 providers. So it was felt that within North Lanarkshire, if we had maybe followed a similar type path, that we would end up with the same issues and same challenges that Glasgow faced. So we were rather keen then to just avoid that. However, we still had to remain true to the committee report and also to the members' wishes, and the decision was that they didn't want this 10 advice agencies all doing different things, or duplicating each other, and in some areas, in particular thing Cumbernauld, Bellshill and Wishaw, we would have 2, 3, 4 agencies all offering the same service, and they really wanted to get down to this mixed economy across the 6 main localities, 1 council service and 1 external service per locality. So following that, in discussions with our procurement team, we decided to remain within a grant funded preference. However, we introduced a bit of competitiveness around that. So we had a grant funded competitive option. So from that, what we done for our next step was we established a short life working group that included not only officers from the council but also from each. We had members from citizens advice bureaus, and we had members from the independent sector, and we also had some assistance from the procurement team within North Lanarkshire as well, to make sure that we didn't go down the route that looked like procurement, and we were looking to do competitive grant funding. So we had to be very careful with your language, very careful with application forums, etc. So the group set up was established, agreed sort of kind of baseline route that we were going to take. So we done a lot of work then. So ultimately, what is it our communities needed? It was clear from the information that what was required at the time, and indeed in the future, would be from an external perspective, that we would be looking to commission services to provide type 1 of the national standards for information advice providers for money advice, type 1 for housing advice, and type 2 for welfare rights. And ultimately, the aim of the commissioning model, and indeed the council's own business plan, was to, well, the council in-house team will still provide type 3, e.g. representation at social appeal tribunals. The idea of all of the services would be to capture and have outcomes at the type 2 level, avoiding the need for appeals. We then looked at the model, then made sure we were designing it that was fit for the future, for the external provision, and then internally the council developed a application forum for each of the interested parties to apply. We provided guidance on how to complete those application forms. 2 weeks after issuing the application form and guidance, we held a Q&A session for all interested applicants. The invitation to apply for competitive grant funding was put out to all members of the North Lanarkshire Advice Network, not just the people who we had been previously funding. So there was an element of transparency and opportunity for other organisations apply, and indeed we did receive applications from people who had not been previously funded by the council to provide advice and information services. Okay, so as well as having the Q&A, over the providers had 6 weeks to complete their application form, and during those 6 weeks, a senior officer from the financial inclusion team visited all applicants to provide further guidance and information in how to complete the application form. The application form was designed so that the external services service and outcomes would match the internal team's outcomes and key performance indicators, and looked at 4 areas in line with the council's business plan, which was to improve economic opportunities and outcomes, support all children to realise their full potential, improve health and care of our communities, and improve relationships with communities and the third sector. Council does have a 5th one with regard to improve the council resource base, but that had been already addressed in the sense of the council's savings from this review of information and advice services. So the application was around that. They were given 6 weeks to complete the application. During that time, the council internally developed a scoring matrix that was used for to assess the applications, and also we developed guidance which each assessor would meet. So there was 3 assessors. There was 2 internal assessors and 1 external assessor. And each assessor independently, using the guidance, scored the applications, and then there was a meeting, and then each score was brought together, and if it was sort of kind of straightforward and everybody was pretty much in the same frame of mind, then the decision was quite straightforward. However, if there were differences of a score, then obviously the meeting was then to start talking through the differences of scores, and this find out why assessor 1, 2 or 3 had done something different, or the 3 of them had done something different from sort of kind of each other. So that that meeting lasted a full day, and to be upfront, it wasn't that much of a difficulty. There were 3 areas where it was close. However, via those discussions and going through the applications and the scoring matrix, etc., the 3 assessors were able to agree who were the successful applicants. So that the 5, it ended up, there could have been obviously 6 providers, or there could have been 1 provider or 2 providers, but we ended up with 5 providers, and they all went to the Citizens Advice Bureaus. So Cumbernauld Citizens Advice were the successful applicant for Cumbernauld, Airdrie Citizens Advice for the successful applicants for Airdrie, Coatbridge CB for Coatbridge, Bellshill for Bellshill, and Motherwell and Wishaw Citizens Advice Bureau was successful for Motherwell and Wishaw, who were still treated as 2 separate localities, although they were the same organisation. So once the assessors agreed that, they had to draft up a committee report, take it through the committee cycle, and on the 8th of November 2017, then the committee agreed the decision of the assessors as to who the successful applicants were. It was originally intended that the new commissioning model would start from December 2017, but on reflection of going through the process, it was decided that we would continue to fund everyone until the 31st of March 2018, and that the new commissioning model would only come into effect from the 1st of April 2018. So that allowed us to do 2 things. One, it allowed us to work with the successful applicants to put more sort of kind of be more focused, put more meat and more precise in the sense of what their locality profile, funding agreements and service specifications would look like, which we did from December through to March, and all of those services started on the 1st of April, and so far. It's been good. They each now have a link officer, and that link officer will monitor them as organisations carry out monitoring visits when planned, when unplanned, and be the link with the council. And obviously, we will get the 5 of them now will report to us the same information as each other and not differently. It will link into what the council service is doing too. So we will be comparing apples with apples and not apples with pears. It then also allowed us that 4 months to work with our unsuccessful applicants to look at other alternative funding options, which, if they were successful, that would allow them to continue as organisations, even with the view of not maybe necessarily being an advice and information providers as they'd previously been in the sense of welfare rights or money advice, or both, but maybe a combination of one of them and another type of service, such as employability, numeracy and literacy, CVs, etc., and stuff like that. Of those providers, well, it's technically it would be 3 actually when I think about it, decided not to explore alternative funding options, and they preferred exit strategies and stopped delivering their services come the 31st of March 2018. And 2 have went on to seek alternative funding, but it's to continue to provide advice and information services to fund welfare rights and money advice. And they have secured funding up until July 2018, and they're waiting on decisions from applicant to bids for future funding until June, July 2019, and we're currently waiting to see what happens with them. And both have agreed that they will continue to be members of the North Lanarkshire Advice Network. So as it's saying there within the slide as well, the time frame for the new model was to start 2018-19, which we have done. If you're a successful applicant, you have a 3-year deal with the council now, which gives a bit of sustainability to those organisations, and it will allow it to sort of kind of bed in, and it would allow them and the council to see how the new commissioner model will work, whether it needs any modification to it, tweaks here and there, that the commissioning, the research information is right, what was right, and that what it is our communities needed. And we will just continue, obviously, to monitor that over the next 3 years. It does mean for the unsuccessful applicants, if they have been able to maintain alternative funding options, that we would then move into a competitive grant funding phase again come 2021, again for 3 years. To ensure that we were transparent, we were fair, that everybody had the same opportunity, etc., it's been agreed that the council's internal audit team will audit the whole process. So that's starting from the very start, looking at the review, the recommendations of the review, and then ultimately how we have implemented the recommendations of the review, not just from an external perspective, but also for the internal team as well, which resulted in the welfare rights team that had been previously based within health and social care, and the money advice team that had previously been based in protective services merged into the one team, being located within the council's infrastructure service, however delivering the service out of health and social care and other council settings, to ensure that we maintained our work under the welfare reform action plan that the council has in place since 2010. It's been quite a successful model and agenda and action plan, and the council didn't want to do anything that would jeopardise the work that was going on within, already going on within tackling welfare reform and mitigating the impacts of it. So as I say, we are now just only a month or so in. It's tied in nicely in one respect, is because obviously back then we didn't know at the time, but we do know now that Universal Credit Full Service has been rolled out in North Lanarkshire, in April 2018. So that sort of kind of not planned, as I said, but it sort of kind of came in at the same time, and it's now whether the new commissioning model for external services and the work happening internally is going to be able to stand up to help people cope with the impact of welfare reform. And that is the end of my presentation. And I hope you have found it useful. Thank you.